Alrighty. Hey everybody, I'm GamePro03, just going over some information about the Staggers in Archeage. This is all relevant as of 6.5. This is going to be a super quick informational video where I'm just, here you go, here's all the information right there, and there's a link down below as well to this sheet so that you guys can get it. There's a premise to this, because there's a lot of different Staggers in Archeage that are not really well defined, and there's things in Archeage that are known as Staggers or not known as Staggers, and they have tons of different actual effects, right? Something is called Stagger but has a different effect than another Stagger. So Art and I had actually gone through all of these abilities that do something like a Stagger, and we started to define all of them. They're up on the actual screen right now, you can see them. And I just want to make a couple notes here about why we made this chart, because of how all of these, well, so many of these actually reference to a Stagger, but do not act the same way. For example, the biggest examples we see here is that Pin Down has a combo for Stagger, and that combo is it's known as a Stagger for 1 second, but it varies from other Staggers in the fact that not only does it disable abilities for 1 second, it actually disables the ability of Defiance for 1 second. Defiance being the button you push when you need to get out of any crowd control. Stagger, this particular one, actually stops that. You cannot use Defiance during a pin down. And another important thing here, and with some of these, is that this doesn't even appear in your combat log. So while you might become staggered because of pin down, if you go back through the combat log to see what happened, why did you not, why were you not able to do anything, you won't see anything about it other than the pin down occurring. So it's important to note some of these will not even appear there. And, if you get confused in a fight, this might be why. All right. These are also referenced in-game as Staggers, by the way, and I'll show that off. But in-game, you actually have, these. I don't know how well these will appear on the screen since I do this in 4K, but, here's Pin Down, for example. There's the combo in the bottom. Maybe you see it. You can look this up later as well on your own hand, but, this inflicts Stagger for 1 second while used under the effects of Bloodthirst, right? But it doesn't give you much else. Some of them do tell you that they disable abilities, but all of them are a little bit slightly off. So, that's number one. Number two, a lot of these do the same thing. They'll disable abilities, but they don't disable Defiance. And then some of these do appear in the combat log, some of these don't appear in the combat log. Some of these appear in the combat log in a weird way. Dahuda's Breath is a good example of that, where you do actually get, so both of these versions of Dahuda's Breath that are listed up there, they will disable all abilities, including Defiance, and in addition to both of those, they're not even called Stagger in the combat log, they're called Dahuda's Breath, right? So it's something different to look for. So hopefully the information on the screen makes sense. You can go down below and get the information yourself whenever you want from the direct Google Sheets link. The other thing I want to talk about here is diminishing returns. So a lot of people are aware of diminishing returns, but are not totally aware of how they work. And we went over this years ago, and this hasn't changed still to this day as of 6.5, the current version. So diminishing returns on a lot of different abilities, and I haven't even finished this chart yet, but you're kind of getting a trend with this. Great, unfinished data, I know, I'm just putting information out there, right? Don't yell at me. So diminishing returns is essentially if you use the same exact sort of or exact type of crowd control effect on someone, the follow-up crowd control effects will actually last a significantly lesser duration. So here on the list you see, if you hit somebody twice with the same kind of crowd control, it will actually be a 50% less duration for the second time. And then the third time, it's actually 25% of that total duration, and the fourth time it just fails completely, and gives them an immunity after that fourth time. So this causes an immunity. It's not actually 30 seconds like it says in the top chart, but the bottom chart kind of defines this a little bit better because, oh, I'm sorry, yes, immunity is 30 seconds. What am I saying? The bottom chart is something a little bit different. So the bottom chart is if you don't attack someone for X period of time, these diminishing returns actually reset, right? So if you do 3 hits on someone with a stun, and then wait 25 seconds, you can then stun them again for the full duration as if diminishing returns is gone completely. And we notice this is actually different per crowd control effects. Snares, impales, and trips, for example, have a 30-second diminishing returns duration. So if you're playing extremely, extremely focused in a 1v1, for example, you can maybe snare a target 3 times and then wait. Don't actually snare them again, if you can, for 30 seconds so that you can actually, follow up then and get a full duration of a snare. Otherwise, you'd use your 4th snare, not only does it fail, but that, from that point, gives them a 30-second immunity to snare. So if you're playing really, really efficiently, you want to actually work around these values and kind of keep track of things in your head or maybe on the screen somehow based on other cooldowns from abilities. The other thing I wanted to notice, actually, and I forgot to do this earlier, but Ghastly Pack is a really interesting one that's on this list and has a huge description. Important to note, Ghastly Pack causes kind of a half silence, okay? It's not a silence that stops you from using abilities, it's a silence that stops you from current channels, right? On your screen, when this happens, like in the UI for debuffs, if you have that on in the options, so like for me it's like down here in the middle, but on the screen you'll actually see silence for half a second if you get hit by Ghastly Pack. However, you could still cast abilities, everything's fine. The only difference is it cuts off any current channeling or channels that you do. But this is interesting because since it is considered a silence, it does actually work the same way, or it is not going to affect you if you have silence immunity. So this means if you have silence immunity from pretty much the only skill in the game, I think, that does that, which is Protective Wings, Ghastly Pack will not stop you from casting things, right? This means that if you're the one channeling Protective Wings, and you're under the effect of Protective Wings, Ghastly Pack will not stop that from, will not cancel it, even though it says that it cancels any kind of channeled things. Since it's considered a silence, that will actually not happen. So, kind of obscure things. These are really, really, these are really obscure things in gameplay because of the fact that all these are so different from one another. They don't really have any different names. They just all are called Stagger. One of them is called a root, which doesn't make any sense, considering it does the same thing as other Staggers do and even has the same debuff icon. That is Startling Strain. Startling Strain, actually, because it also causes snare technically, it has Diminishing Returns. So it's actually the only Stagger that has Diminishing Returns in this list. So that's pretty much all that I want to say on the topic. If you guys have any questions, you can put them into the comments of the video, or that would be the option, I guess, for this one, because this information isn't on Reddit compared to like the other things that I put out there. So I think that's all that I have on the topic. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. And if you guys know what fear duration reset is, that'd be great, because I actually... Man, I probably should have done that before I recorded this. Oh well, it's fine, whatever.